All right. That was a great intro.
That's so good. I was singing along.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the very, very first Founders live stream. Steve, what's the word, man?
Hey, this is something whole new. This is new technology, Jeremy. At our age, we've got to be careful how many times we do this. But I'm like, this is so cool. I've got a thing saying I'm live on LinkedIn as well and Facebook. So a big upgrade on the old podcast.
Absolutely. And for those of you who may not have followed us, for years we've done the Liberators podcast, and it's still available. And the Liberator podcast sessions are on the platform on GiANT TV. But now we've actually started this as our first Founders live stream. We decided let's do a Founders live stream so we can stay connected across the pond, as Steve is in England and I am in America. And so, dude, let's go. Let's do some banter. Here's what we're going to do, everyone. By the way, we're going to reminisce today. We're going to share some things that are going to be really fun, just reminiscing about where we've come from and why we are where we are. But we always start off with a little bit of banter where we go back and forth on why America is better and how America's now become the real superpower and what. No, I'm joking. It's probably not a time to joke about that kind of stuff. But what's the mood in England these days, Steve?
Gosh, we're heading into lockdown yet again. So don't get me started on that. It's kind of, I think it's an invasion of our civil liberties. And this is the reason I always say I'm an American in exile in Britain with a British passport, because I think my views are much more in keeping with where you guys are. But yes, I think 2 more people have died this week. So we're basically going to ruin the economy completely.
Way to start off our live stream with however, it hasn't kept you from playing golf. Is this true?
No. That would be catastrophic if they locked the golf course down. So yeah, that would be the end. It's one thing not being able to fly and visit my favorite country, but luckily the golf course is open and my handicap is come down over COVID. So that's always a good thing. And yeah,
I think it's important for all of those that don't know. Steve's a really good golfer, and it really brings you life. Is that fair? To recharge? Okay.
Yeah.
But so it's okay to brag a little bit. There's something to the left of your ear. What is that up there on the left of your ear?
Yes. It's one of the various cups that I've won over the years, Jez. I only put a couple of them up there because to put them all up there would basically just appear bragging. So, and obviously my new book, Effortless Humility, and How I Mastered It, is not come out yet. So I'm just going to be understated.
But I want to brag on you to go because when I played with you, were awful. No, I'm joking. You've always been a good golfer. You have something significant coming up in this next few weeks. Where are you
at? In the bracket, to use my American phrase. So I am in the semi-finals of the club match play championship. Again, I won it last year, and in the 110-year history of the club, no one has ever won it 2 years running. So I've got 2 more rounds to go. So probably now I've told you, it probably means I'm going to have to deal with my own failure of pride and lose. But yeah, no, I'll let you know how it goes. You'll hear a lot more if I won, by the way.
So if anyone wants to place money or to bet, we'll set up a side deal. So
there you go. So, what have you've moved into a new house since last time we did one of these as well, haven't you? The American Dream.
We moved into our neighborhood. We built this neighborhood called the Prairie at Post. We were loving it. Perfect timing for lockdown. It's got a silo guest house. It's 80 degrees for like 2 weeks. Perfect weather. It's a good season. We're loving it. So yeah.
You've deserved it. I mean, very few people actually get to vision a whole community from nothing and see it come to life. All I'd say is a good job you've got a guardian nurturer wife who's awesome at project management, Jez. Perfect team for you two.
100%. It's easy for me to vision. Don't you see it? It's right here. You can do this and this. And then for Kelly to come and do the details, and we're a good team. And bless her, she's worn out a little bit and recouping before we maybe start the next fun venture. We'll see. We're going away next weekend. And we're basically, or sorry, next week for a couple of days, and we're going to take 3 days to envision the future. We're going to do brainstorming together, but we're doing it guardian nurturer style. Do unto others as they would want done to them is the platinum rule. So I'm doing under, like, my wife doesn't like to go away and envision and dream. So I'm secretly doing it in clever ways that match the guardian nurture approach. So we'll see it. We'll see how it goes.
Give me some clues. What you're actually planning on doing?
So I basically have said, hey, what are the big topics you want to talk about, like the next season? And I've been gathering all of those. So now I'm creating them. She's not watching this, by the way. So anyway, hopefully she won't watch it before. But I'm doing 3x5 cards.
I've just texted you. He's just joined us, so keep going.
So I'm doing 3x5 cards on but I'm asking questions instead of what are your goals or what do you want to accomplish or what do you see. I'm not doing any of that. I'm actually saying, hey, what's really life-giving right now that you want to continue? What is it you don't want? And I'm asking it in ways that are more to the present-oriented voice than the future-oriented. So we'll see how it goes. I'm
so proud of you. That's 7 years worth of progress, that is.
Totally. Anyway. Well, hey, this is for all of those who, again, know who we are, Steve Cockram, Jeremie Kubicek. We had this dream, and the dream years ago was how do we use our platform, or how do we use business as a platform for influence in a way that we could actually help people become healthy and help them to multiply? And how could they actually become a liberating leader, someone who fights for the highest possible good of people and scale that? And since then, and we're going to show you a few pictures and kind of reminisce for a minute, but since then, we've had hundreds of people get certified on our system, and we're just getting started on that. And then we've had thousands of companies, and I think, Steve, we're right now in around 118 countries. I think we have clients in 118 countries who are using our content that we started. And we want to show you where it began and why it began. Yeah. And for those who don't know, here it is. Walk us through, Steve.
So there is Hedser Priory. So 7.5 years ago now, Jez, you, Kelly, and the gang moved in, and we lived there as two families for just over a year. And you'd sacked yourself from your job because you didn't think you were very good at it, and I'd been let go of mine because I obviously wasn't very good at it. And we kind of both were in a place where we were going, well, I might be 43, you might have been 42, because obviously you're a lot younger and better looking than I am. And we kind of said, I think we'd reached the point where it was, if we had the choice of what we did with the rest of our lives, nothing big picture at all, as you can imagine, what would we most love to do and who would we most love to do it with? And what did we learn in the first 42, 43 years that we'd either take with us into the future or that we wouldn't do? And I remember you saying, I never want to have to take work I don't want to do with people I don't want to work for to pay for someone else's school fees and mortgage. So that basically was that's where you'd reached at that point, I think. But that was just an incredible place, wasn't it, of just being able to have space to dream. And I think that wall, by the way, the black and white wall you can see, is from the Tudor period, which history is one of the few things, obviously, the Brits still beat Americans at. And that's nearly 500 years old. So, that was huge. It was such a cool place, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for us, having a place to do life, and then we would bring people and guests over. So we had one wing, they had one wing, and then we would have this space for guests to come and stay. And we had some of the most fascinating conversations and guests in that backyard. Absolutely. But that's also where the tools and the lenses were built. And what we started doing is we went back into our own lives going, man, I struggled with this and I struggled with this. This was an issue for me. And then almost every day we would basically be together and we would have these random sessions and we start playing with what could be. And in the beginning of anything, we were like, we can do Churchill War Room tours and we can do all these things. And there's all this stuff that you're like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. We're not tour guides. We want to take people on a journey. And so we started creating programs and products and these tools. And we started figuring out really the 21st century. Both of us had come from consulting. I had been in the large event space and publishing, and we kind of saw the end of the 20th century, and we started watching what would happen to the 21st century learning, and we started adapting and creating tools.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that basically very few people ever get to see dreams that start on a whiteboard actually become reality. And in some ways, if you will allow us, it's amazing to look back and see actually what's been achieved. I mean, I was joking there just a minute ago. If I share my screen again with you and go, actually, what began as all of these visual tools. So, I mean, there's loads of them. Many of them will be familiar to people. We created, I think, 60 to 70 different tools, all of which captured things that we were learning ourselves. So I think the fun thing's been we brought basically the best we had. Most of it coming out are our own failures, disappointments, things that have got wrong, and actually ask the question, how do we codify what we are learning in a way that the world of today can understand? Because the new world, the digital world, is visual, and the industrial world was largely about words and memorization. I think that's the bit when we want to celebrate certain things. We did a fantastic job of really reading the future, of actually understanding that if you had to capture things that were visual, interactive, with immediate application. So that's one bit that I want to celebrate, Jess, that actually every single one of these tools that we created, all of them, whether they were from books that you'd written or things that we'd come up with, or even things that we just literally found working through together, gears, communication code, all of this really is our contribution to
Go to the communication code, Steve, if you don't mind. There. So just the point of this for all you watching, literally, this came from a fight. And that's how it happened. So what happened is we got in a fight and we were frustrated. So instead of just never waste a conflict or never waste a challenge, we actually took that opportunity and go, okay, wait, what just happened? Yeah. And we were able to take what just happened and codify it into a visual to go, if that happened with us, I bet it happens with everyone else. And so, no lie, every single one of our tools are from some form of either things we see in people or things that happen to us. So, yeah, I definitely want to celebrate it that you were responsive enough to, and it really was because of living and working with Steve. There are so many tools.
Yeah.
Joking.
No. If you'd clarified expectations more clearly through just very few of these tools would ever have emerged. Anyway, I'm grateful that in some ways, and I think that's part of hopefully the humility of this process. It's going, we've struggled with our own learning, and what we've done is try to say, how can you make different mistakes from the ones we've already made? And I think that's always been the posture of humility. That's almost been at the heart of GiANT, which is to go, in the end, the real humble leader makes different mistakes from the ones others have already made before them because they're prepared to learn. So we offer our repository of our failure effectively to you, almost to say, how do you learn from it? But, it wasn't, we didn't really reach a distribution model for quite a few years, did we, Joseph? If we're honest. We created great tools and we had some amazing people, but it took us a little while to realize that actually probably the digital world required more than an industrial delivery system. So I'll let you own our weakness. You share our struggles. Go on.
Well, so for those who are wondering, this is how we would do tools. So we would take our tools in, and this is how we would convey it. And what was happening was when we were with people, good things happened. When we left, they kind of drift back, and that's kind of the nature of people. And some people got it. I mean, in fact, we have our first, you have a picture, I think, of our first group that we want to celebrate, because we started forming the concept and we started multiplying into a few people. And so here's a picture of some of that. This is the very first boot camp, right? Yeah. So, you see in there a Steve and Jeremy, and then we've got Susan and Jane and LV, just some great people. Mike Opedal was one of our first, Matt Hyatt. So just some amazing people. And so what happened was from that group of people, we started practicing multiplication. So the idea of getting people healthy, we're really good at that. Teaching people to multiply, we're really good at that. But it wasn't until 2018, 19 did we start realizing the need for technology. And I'm so glad we did, because now GiANT, the platform GiANT.tv now has an opportunity to be in 118 countries when we never could before. So we always said our vision was to raise up liberators in every city and every sector, and raise up a liberating minded person who really fights for the highest possible good of those they lead and changes their own culture. We can do that now because of the platform. And so that's the beauty of it, is that we still get the soul, but also we have the mind. We can actually transfer things that we never could before. But that was part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you just do the bits, Jeremy, where we got it wrong, and I'll do the bits where we were superstars. So here's the here's the one tool we've always argued this is the one tool in the toolkit that we got right without actually getting it wrong in the first place. And obviously that's why it's one of my favorites, because it means we don't have to own our own weakness in it. So the premise for this was to go, the assumption being that as any organization grew, from its very earliest concept, with the two of us just sat in Heads of Priory with wives that were just going, what are you talking about? How's this ever going to happen? That we've been over the last 7 years through this incredible journey of what we call pass the baton, or I don't know how you say it, but I say baton anyway. There we go. Pass the baton.
Baton.
Well, how would you say it?
Because I lived in England, now baton. No,
okay, fair enough. So the premise of this was that actually the leaders required for startup are very rarely the same leaders that are required for establishment, or the leaders that are required for expansion. And in the end, a lot of entrepreneurial ventures, in the beginning, in that startup phase, it's very much a place where the pioneers, creators, connectors, particularly those with a P on the end of their letters in Myers-Briggs, are able to see a future that doesn't yet exist and sell it. There is a chaos of startup because you just don't know what's going to work. I mean, I remember you, Jamie, saying, let's create 6 products we'll be really excited about, and probably one of them will work. So we did, you said Winston Churchill tours around, we did marriage intensives, we did X-Core, which was an executive core program. That's the one that was probably the most successful. But understanding that in the end, the skills that define a culture in the beginning, we needed different people along the way, and we actually were able to bring in the right people at the right time. So I would say, if there's one thing to celebrate, that we've always tried to work on our own walls of self-preservation. We've actually recognized that in the end, the mission of GiANT and the vision of GiANT to raise up liberators in every city, every sector, probably in the end couldn't happen because it was just down to you and I. And I can think of a number of times on the way where people joined the team, or people took on leadership roles, or we stepped down from certain roles in order to create the space for people to lead. And I would say that where GiANT is today, and where the platform and the plus SaaS model is today, is really never the work of 2 people. It's really been the work of the people who joined us on this journey and really are actually leading and have led at different times. So I don't know if there's any people specifically you want to celebrate at different stages of the journey, Jez, that's on here.
Let me get some of my thoughts in. So first is exactly right. Every year we have something we do at GiANT, which is usually every June, but it's just once a year we go, what does the organization need? And it's called role clarity, and what's the right roles that we have. And it happened for me this June. I realized, you know what, for where we are in the technology play, we need a stronger technology player. And so Bronson was elevated to CEO. I moved over to executive chairman. Prior to that, Steve had moved to really a board role. And we're both owners and co-founders But it's the reality of like, what does the mission need and what does the company need? And that was one of the things I want to celebrate is like, we've actually worked hard at that. It's not easy. It's really, really hard, but so has every one of our team members. So Mike Opedal joining from the very beginning, we had Hunter and Justin. Those guys have played 10 different roles because the company needed them to play the role. So the adaptability of Hunter and Justin is amazing. The adaptability of Mike, who's now a president, but he's played so many different roles inside the organization. And it's required to stay nimble, to stay, basically continue to grow. A lot of companies will get to a certain level, they'll plateau because ego, because, well, this is just what I am. And then people adapt to the personality. And I think one thing that we've done really well is like, we so want the vision to happen that we're not trying to stake our own course. We're trying to make GiANT be what it should be. And that gives it now the next expansion. And we're in an expansion era. I mean, we have so many things to celebrate. We just launched Invincible, and the Invincible operating system, it is so tight. People are loving it. I told you today, 5-6 people today calling me out of the blue, large companies. Hey, what is this? I need to get connected. And we just closed a big account. You want to share any other celebration there that just happened, Steve?
I think you better, because I don't want to say anything that's inappropriate. You know me, discretion and discipline.
No, we just closed one of the largest companies in the world. Let's just put it at that. And who just became a new client. And if you ever search a search engine, then you'll know who they are. And what that did is it enabled us to really validate the work that we put in at Headser Priory in our little office as we would flip ideas back and forth to each other and go, what about this? And how about that? And then we would have people come and stay with us, and we would try it out on them. And then we would organize it into these core groups. And then we would start a program called X-Core, and then we start multiplying. And that's how it works. It means most people don't want to do the hard yards. They want things delivered to them. So I'm just celebrating that we were able to do the hard yards with people that we loved and appreciated. And even though we still feel like we're just getting started, we've now are at a place where we can play at a global level with companies of size, from the Pfizers to the Biogens to the Leidoses to the Googles to the U.S. Air Force to all of those. And that enables us to really, really see our vision. Yeah,
I mean, and I think the other one learning for me was I don't think we'd have made this on our own. I still think that there's something powerful about the power of two and the minimum unit of team being two. So, you may have got by without me, Jeremy, but the reality is I don't think, I know for a fact that we would not have got here if it had just been me in that CEO role. Because I think the thing is that often what we watch in some of the coaching practices is being the CEO is a really lonely role, that actually you can end up being, you don't have a team. And by that often mean is, well, people go, that's silly. You do have a team. You have your executive team. You might be having to report to the board. But the question is, where can you be truly yourself? Where can you be authentically honest and real? Get the poison out if you're a connector, fire off the grenades into the quarry if you're a pioneer like me. And the number of times Jeremy and I being able to just talk out loud together and actually allow each other sometimes to be frustrated or disappointed. And I just watch along the way. I think there have been times when either of us have been either up or down or just a bit discouraged or weary along the way. And there's something incredibly powerful about having a partner to share the journey with. And I just want to honor you, Jez, as living with a pioneer for 7.5 years and doing that well. But I honestly go, if we're going to celebrate, I think celebrating authentic partnership where actually we are very different, but we love each other and we fight for each other's fast possible good. And where we see those tendencies creeping in, we give each other permission to challenge those. So if you're listening to this and going, wow, I wish I had something like that, or I've got a dream that I'd love to see happen. One of the things I'd often encourage people to do is to go, who can you share this journey with as an entrepreneur? Because it gets lonely. And what you find is lonely people very rarely make great decisions. And that's just a little reflection from me, and a thank you for you. I'm about to tear up, obviously, and get emotional, but I'm grateful that we've been able to share this journey together. Even though we now live across continents, it's still an amazing gift, and I appreciate that.
No, likewise. And that's the fun part. It's part of the learning. And the thing that I would tell is, the question, how do two strong leaders like the two of you share in decision making? We use our own tools. We built the 5 voices. The 5 voices was a key to unlock one another. And we put lenses on to go, oh, that's what you look like. Oh, okay, I can see you more clearly. The tools are like mirrors. So we use the tools on ourselves. So instead of me attacking Steve, I would actually look at a mirror together and go, hey, dude, I've got broccoli in my teeth. How are you? And we would then work together for self-awareness. The key, though, is responsiveness. I've always said Steve is the most responsive person I know. If I ever brought challenge to him, he would then go, well, let's process it and then reflect on it and either respond to it or come back. And conversely, now he's a thinker, a little bit more cerebral. I'm a feeler, so I'm a little bit more volatile. And so I think that was the part of we know one another. And so it comes across as defensiveness when it's passion, but it's the perception is defensiveness because it really is. So therefore, we've known each other, and we've also is going, how do we use this business to get more of our heart so that we become more effective in who we are? And by the way, thanks to Dan Fry. Dan did mention Steve. That was the second boot camp. That wasn't the first.
Attention to detail has always been our strength, Joey, as you know full well.
The first boot camp was Dan Fry. It was some really, really some amazing giants. And so what we did is we basically, that's I think the key to this is like, we're not trying to create it. It wasn't Jeremy and Steve Inc. This was GiANT, so that we gave a platform for anyone to be able to play. And that's what we have is we now have a platform that's digital that can transform lives and multiply and help teams get better. And it gets the best of us because we have recordings and you're hearing us, but then people can leverage it. And that's a beautiful way of us. We ultimately wanted the world to be able to use our language in their systems. And now we have that ability for our language, our objective visual tools, objective language to be able to multiply.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool. I mean, I think one of the things that you said a long time ago that I've often reflected on is that basically self-preservation is an issue for all of us, but the more you try and protect what you're afraid of losing, the more likely you are to lose it faster. And I think one of the things that founders often struggle with is actually not being at the center of all the decision making. When you're living it and breathing it every day, and I think, as Jeremy said, in New York last November, coming up a year, we realized that the business had got to a point where actually we were slowing things down. And in some ways, hard to believe, we weren't really tech entrepreneur experts. And in the end, it was like, well, one of us has to lead it to really preserve the culture. But Jeremy, you're way better at doing that than I am in America. So in some ways, it was difficult to go, well, I'm going to step back from day to day, but I'm going to create the space so the team actually doesn't experience me coming in and out all the time. I'm actually going to create the space for them to really lead and back them and cheer for them. Most founders can't do that, by the way, because it's actually quite addictive having an identity that means you're in charge. But I think the thing that I would celebrate, both with Jeremy and the team, with Rich, with Mike, with Bronson, and latterly, even some of the other guys in that process is when you are prepared to deal with your own self-preservation and recognize what is best for the mission. The interesting thing is your influence only grows because in the end, people credit you with far more than you deserve. So that issue of how do you create multiplication and how do you multiply multipliers? The only way you can do it is knowing that actually when the time to pass the baton happens, to do it and don't try and grab it back the moment you don't like the direction of where things are going, because you have to find people that you believe are better than you at doing things. and then create the culture and the environment where they can thrive. And that's been an amazing journey for both of us, really. You more recently changing roles too, as you said before. So that's just more reflective of learning.
And it's really important to understand, like, the pass baton, but also the support and challenge. So the role. So Steve's had to learn how to do support and challenge from a different role. I was CEO role, and then passing that to Bronson, which is the first time outside of the founders. Then the ability I moved to an executive chairman role. So to go, what is that role, and how do you establish it? And that takes time. It's an adjustment season. I'm still adjusting to it. But then what does support and challenge look like? Because I'm still on the executive team. So how do I then bring that? But I'm not the CEO. So, but the executive chairman has a distinct role. So point is, when you look at the organization, what does the organization need? And that is the key question that gets asked. Then who are the right players for that need? Not who are the players, what do they need? And then what does the organization need? It's reverse. And I think that's where a lot of people miss it. It's like, no, what does the company need for the mission and the vision? And then you have to surrender and sacrifice because you want the vision and mission. But if you self-preserve, you kill the mission and vision. And it's a fine line because there's ego and there's feelings and emotions. And then, but the beauty is when you do get in the right role, there's new freedom. I always say, founders specifically, if you give up something, you have to take on something, or you'll always go back to what you gave up. So so for me, I've been learning to take on new things that were not the CEO roles, so that that gives me enough where I don't focus on what I gave up. And you did the same thing as well, Steve. So it's good.
And I think almost coming to an end, I guess, but actually to go, when you can actually be more proud of the achievements that you've raised up than your own achievements, then you've probably achieved something that really we wrote a lot about in the 100X Leader, which was almost our manifesto for leadership. Somebody wise said, make the book you want to be remembered for your third one, which we did, because it's really our heart and soul that lies behind GiANT. How do you create transformational change that lasts, and how do you multiply it into the lives of others so they can multiply it without the need of expensive consultants? And I think that's the bit where, whether it's pride, I hope not, or whether just a sense of, well, we're trying to live out what it is we're encouraging others to do. That yesterday I sat and watched the team deliver basically a summit to our consultants around the world, showing them what they'd created, and which many of you will begin to see as upgrades on the GiANT platform. And I was literally blown away. I mean, I am just so proud of what's been achieved, because for the first time, it's not the tools have changed. It's not the vocabulary and language that really define what we do, but we have a delivery system for the digital world. And therefore, teams, organizations with limited or massive budget, every single person can now actually have access to what it was that was created and has continued to be created over these years. So that feels like the fulfillment of a vision and a dream, or at least stage one of it, that actually every single person in the world can now have a free account on GiANT. Everyone can have access to the things that we learn and codified and share with you. So that's why we're just going to have fun on our founders live stream, and we will share some ideas what we're doing. But it's almost a little bit about going, most people, Bronson said to me, he said, Steve, it usually takes 10 years of incredible hard work and sacrifice to become an overnight success. And we're 7 and a bit years into this process. And it's just a huge thank you to every single person who has shared the journey with us, who's forgiven us when we've got it wrong, has cheered for us, has helped us, has encouraged us, has agreed to be clients when we were learning what we were doing. All of those things are part of the celebration of today. So you know who you are, and we're truly grateful.
And thanks for all the comments, friends. That and I know a lot of people are watching. But here's what our plan is. Like Steve mentioned, the founders live stream is, this is where we give. This is where we're going to process and think about some of our new ideas. We're going to be processing from the founders live stream. Some of them we'll just go in a deeper dive on communication code, or we might do a deeper dive on certain tools, even mashing up tools. There's a lot of mining that we haven't done yet. And Steve and I have talked about it. There is so much content around multiplication that we just have sitting around that we haven't. So we're going to use this live stream as a chance for us to banter a little bit. We'll do it every Friday, and then we're going to use it as an opportunity to really go deeper and connect with you guys, because we're on the other side of the world from one another. This is our way of engaging and then being able to engage with you all as well. So that's the plan of the Founders live stream. I hope that you've enjoyed this little update and kind of reminiscing. It's not indulgent reminiscing. It's almost like saying, look, for those of you that don't know GiANT, some of you know our story and you're like, oh, it's a new era. It is a new era. It's a great era. We're so fired up about the era because we can now actually fulfill the dreams that we've had, that our vision is even closer now. But what we're doing is we're moving into a new era of content and conversation. And what we talk about on this live stream is going to be the latest and greatest as far as content and the 21st century digital age thinking. So any last thoughts, Steve? Or did you already say them? You already
I must be getting older, Jez, on the grounds. This has been really quite cathartic, actually, and quite moving for an emotional thinker like me to actually go. I'm actually just grateful. I think that's the sense of, wow, how many people have a chance to experience this, find something they love with people they love doing, and actually get paid for doing it as well. So really hope that you will explore the platform, use the platform, actually find out how you can build Invincible as an operating system inside your world, because it's so much more fun when you have the tools to know why it works and why it doesn't. So great to see you this afternoon. Thank you.
Special thanks to Kayla and Amy Mast and Dan and Amy Hutchins and some term friends as well for piping in and giving us some thoughts. So yeah, thanks, man. All right. Well, hey, don't screw up on your match. Seriously, 2 more.
It'll be a couple of weeks. It'll be a couple of weeks before that happens, but we're all good. Don't you worry. Thanks,
Well,
Jez.
everyone will get to follow along. It's going to be great. Cheers. Bye,
I'll do
guys.
it live stream.